realtor never mentioned the stains. That was my first clue something was wrong. When I toured the house, I'd noticed dark patches on the basement doorframe, rust-colored streaks that looked like something had been clawing at the wood. "Just some water damage," she said too quickly, her pen tapping nervous rhythms on the contract. The second clue came with the keys. There were 4 on the ring, but only 3 locks in the entire house. When I asked about the 4th key, the realtor's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, that's just extra." She changed the subject to parking regulations. I should have run then. But the rent was cheap, and the silence. God, the silence was beautiful. For exactly 3 nights. On the 4th night, I heard the first knock. Not from the front door. Not from a window. From inside the walls. 3 precise raps, like knuckles on drywall. Then silence. Then 3 more, closer this time. I told myself it was the plumbing until I pressed my ear to the wall and heard breathing wet, ragged inhales that smelled like spoiled meat through the plaster. The next morning, I found the first photograph. It sat perfectly centered on my kitchen table, though I'd eaten dinner there hours earlier. A Polaroid, faded with age. My bedroom. My bed. Me sleeping. The date on the white border showed 1987, a decade before I was born. That's when I noticed the figure standing in the corner of the photo, just outside the frame's edge. Tall. Thin. Its head tilted at an impossible angle, like a broken doll's. I threw it in the trash. That night, it reappeared on my pillow, fresh blood smeared across the figure's elongated fingers. Now the knocking comes every night at 3:17 a.m. Always moving closer. Always in sets of 3. Last night, it came from behind my headboard. And tonight, I just heard it answer when I knocked back. The knocking wasn't the worst part. It was how the house changed after I knocked back. First, the silence. That heavy, breathless pause where even the crickets stopped chirping. Then I heard this sound, like a butcher's knife being sharpened across bone. The sound pulsed from the hallway, rhythmic and wet. My bedroom door stood slightly ajar, just as I'd left it, but the darkness between the door and frame had texture now. Not empty blackness, but something coiled there, shifting like a nest of eels. I grabbed my phone. The screen lit up with a notification, 1 new voicemail. The timestamp said 3:18 a.m. I hadn't heard it ring. The message was just breathing at first, raspy, guttural, the way a dog sounds after running too long in summer heat. Then a voice that wasn't human.
"You let me in."
The screen went black. In its reflection, my face stretched like melting wax, my jaw unhinging too wide, my teeth growing jagged and yellow. I threw the phone. It hit the wall and stuck. Not fell. Stuck, screen first against the wallpaper, as if something behind the drywall had caught it. That's when the door creaked wider. No wind. No draft. Something was pulling it. A hand slithered through the gap, sickly gray skin glistening with something thicker than sweat. The fingers bent in too many places, knuckles bulging like tumors. It groped blindly, nails scratching grooves into the hardwood, until it found the Polaroid I dropped earlier. The fingers twitched, then scraped something into the floorboards as they retreated. I didn't sleep, didn't blink, just stared at those fresh marks until dawn leaked through the curtains. The message was carved in jagged capitals. "You woke us up." The photograph had changed. Now it showed me cowering in bed, my sheets tangled like burial shrouds. The long-limbed figure wasn't on the ceiling anymore. It was under the bed, one elongated arm snaked up around the mattress, its fingers curled around my ankle. Worst of all, the 4th key, the one that didn't fit any lock, now dangled from its wrist on a rusted chain. And it was bleeding. Fresh droplets stained the Polaroid's border, still glistening wet after 30 years. I should have burned the house down when I had the chance. The key wasn't just bleeding in the photograph, it was rusting in real time. By morning, the metal had oxidized into a crumbling red mess, the chain reduced to flakes of corroded iron. But when I touched it, my fingers came away wet. Not with water. Not with blood. Something thicker, with the sour tang of old pennies and spoiled milk. The voicemail was still on my phone. The timestamp had changed. Now it read, "Delivered 12:17 a.m., 3 hours before I'd ever knocked back." I tried to leave, packed a bag, threw open the front door, and faced my own hallway. The same wallpaper, the same crooked picture frame, the same basement door at the end, now slightly open. I slammed the door, opened it again. My hallway. Again. My hallway. On the 5th try, the door opened to my bedroom, where the Polaroid now sat propped on my pillow. The image had changed again. This time, the long-limbed figure sat in my chair, its too many jointed fingers steepled under its chin. Its face was turned toward the camera, features blurred like a smudged painting, except for the mouth. That horrible, grinning mouth. It was my mouth. Same chapped lips. Same crooked front tooth. The key was gone from its wrist. Instead, its hand rested on a new object, a leather-bound journal I'd never seen before. The cover was stained with the same rust-colored substance. I didn't want to touch it, but the moment I looked away, the journal appeared on my desk. The first page held a single sentence in shaky handwriting. "You don't remember buying the house, do you?" My blood went cold. Because they were right. I couldn't recall signing the papers. Couldn't remember meeting the landlord. The next page sent me sprinting for the bathroom. "Check your wrists." There, hidden in the creases of my skin, were faint marks, indentations, as if something had been tied too tightly around them. And beneath that, barely visible, the outline of a key. I finally understood why the rent was so cheap. The journal's last page wasn't paper anymore. It pulsed like living flesh under my fingertips. The words formed themselves as I watched, bubbling up through the surface in dark, inky veins. "You were never the tenant. You're the offering." The walls began to weep. Not water. Something warm and sticky that streaked the wallpaper like tears. I stumbled back, my hands hitting the mirror, and that's when I saw them. The others. Dozens of faces pressed against the glass behind my reflection, their features stretched and melted like wax. Their mouths moved in unison, whispering a single phrase I felt more than heard. "We tried to warn you." The basement door flew open with a sound like a dying man's gasp. A smell rolled out, birthday cake and rotting meat, formaldehyde and freshly turned earth. The stairs groaned under a weight they'd borne too many times before. My body moved without my consent. One foot after another. Down. Always down. The flashlight died halfway. It didn't matter. The walls began to glow with a sickly bioluminescence, revealing handprints, small ones, child-sized, leading to a metal chair at the center of the room. The chair was warm when I sat. The restraints clicked shut like familiar friends. Above me, the ceiling opened like a flower, peeling back to reveal a night sky that wasn't right. The stars blinked like eyes. The moon grinned with too many teeth. The last thing I saw before the shadows took me was the realtor standing in the corner, her smile finally reaching her eyes as she whispered, "Fully furnished now." Then the new Polaroid developed in my hands, fresh, the chemicals still stinging my fingers. It showed the next tenant walking through the front door. And behind them, wearing my face, something waved at the camera.